Great. So here we are with our virtual UC Links virtual office hours on Tuesday, February 20th. And we're excited to welcome Nina and Roland and Inger Marie from Denmark to tell us about their Making for All pilot program. So let me hand it over to you all to give us an overview about what's going on in Denmark.
Thank you very much. I think we'll start by introducing ourselves. Maybe that's relevant. I'm Nina Bonderup Dohn. I'm a professor of learning and IT at the University of Southern Denmark, and I visited UC Berkeley last year and met Mara and John, and was excited to learn about the UC Links project and network, because that was actually something that was going on together with, at the time, Roland. We were hoping, at least, and that we had a project going, we thought, that was very much up along the lines of UC Links, and so I was really excited about this network that basically fell in my lap. And I was so fortunate to join Mara and John in visiting Jay and Lee at UC Davis, and see how they work with makerspaces and FabLab, and so that only consolidated my belief that I had a present fall into my lap. And of course, I involved Roland in it, and Inger Marie later on. And I'll pass to you, Roland, to say who you are.
Thank you. I'm Roland. I'm a lecturer and researcher at the University College of Southern Denmark, where I'm affiliated with the teacher education. And I'm part of an institute that's called Institute for Education in School. And my primary research areas involve technologies in the classroom. And specifically, I'm very interested in computational literacy as a pathway into teaching computational thinking and computational literacy across subjects in school. So I have a more general approach than many of my colleagues who are invested in some kind of subject, whether it's mother tongue or mathematics or STEM education and whatnot. I think that's me. And then of course I'm interested as well in the maker movement, because it's becoming a bigger and bigger thing in public schools, where they are establishing maker spaces, fab labs, and different kinds of ways to work with different kind of maker technologies. So it's kind of a natural thing for me to be interested in. All right.
Right, I'll take over. I was a PhD student in a project Nina has probably told you about. Designing for situated learning of computational thinking with computational things. We were a group of people investigating how to implement computational things across different educational levels, and I was working at the level of higher education. Unfortunately, I can say was, because I finished my PhD, and while I was waiting for the assessment committee's judgment on my thesis, I was granted some hours in Nina's project, or Nina's and Roland's project that they're going to tell you more about today. And that's actually my first meeting, a real meeting with the makerspaces and the target group of young people with diagnoses. We did some observations last year in the autumn, and that was quite insightful with regards to the special requirements that you have to consider when dealing with this target group. So I'm mostly here really to learn more and perhaps to get inspiration from the rest of you, because I've still got some hours into the project, and what we hope to do is to develop a sort of framework for teachers to use when planning maker spaces and similar learning activities for young people. And otherwise, I'm doing research currently as an assistant professor in learning design and technology. I've got the special focus of higher education, but I'm really just interested in learning design and technology very broadly.
Thanks, Inge-Marie and Roland. I think I'll tell you a little bit about, we haven't planned any slides because we're basically really interested in a dialogue with you and in picking your brains about the challenges we are meeting, and then in sharing our ideas with you. So we thought that for us, that works better if we're simply just talking freely, and you can just interrupt us at any point, because basically that's what we're hoping you do. But I'll tell you a little bit about the background for our project and how it developed over time. And I think at some point I'll say, and over to you, Roland. But as you can hear also from our presentation, this project started out as a collaboration between Roland and me. At the time where this is all very institutionally complicated, but at the time Roland was a postdoc part-time he was a postdoc full-time, but he was a postdoc in my project, the one that Inge-Marie is also part of. But he was part-time still at the University College, and our collaboration started as things do when people know each other well, but they are differently situated. So I am collaborating with the part of Roland that was at the University College, even though part of him was with me, if that makes sense. But of course, that's how we got into it. And our two institutions are close, and they're trying to get closer. And they see our collaboration, or at least saw not actually part of our challenges, which tends to use at what part of the project. But they are interested in strengthening collaborations through specific concrete projects, where the one Roland and I were engaging would be an exemplar, actually, of doing it. And also we are situated in the municipality of Kolding, which Kolding is the 7th largest city in Denmark. Now don't start thinking America size of 7th largest. We've got around 70,000, not 17, 70, but still around 70,000 people. So it's not huge, but it's the 7th largest city anyway. And it's a local. It's a local setting in the sense that it is that the traditions of higher education is not that they haven't been established for that long in Kolding. So the municipality is also really interested in collaborating with, or at least some level of the municipality is very interested in collaborating with us. So this started out as at the top level of both institutions and the municipality, an explicit interest in working together, and at the local level with Roland and me also very interested in working together. But what has been our challenge is that the level of educational development, sort of the medium level in Kolding municipality, we have participated in several meetings with them where they've expressed interest, and where they have also already sort of helped us make a focus of our more general interest in computational thinking together with them, and then they sort of stopped responding. So our interpretation, and maybe wrong, is that they were acting more on the directives of the top management than they were on their own interests. That said, I think they also were interested because Roland and I came very openly with a question about how can we do double-sided competence development with teachers in schools and with the staff at the University College who teaches teachers within the area of computational thinking, informatics, without any specific focus area. And the educational developers at the municipality very, very quickly said that what they found most interesting was the challenges that students find within FabLab, students who are not so happy with open spaces. And they and they said this because they had been participating in another development program, educational development program with FabLabs over a couple of years, and they had experienced that some children found this very challenging. And Roland and I, we sort of we grabbed this because that's actually also our concern, that for some students, FabLab makerspaces are really interesting, and the way that they can engage differently with STEM areas and STEAM areas than they can within a usual school setting. But for other students, it's much more difficult and contentious because they sense that there are norms that they don't quite know how to follow, and it's expressed as being free and open, but still they can't be free and open in any way. And if so, we on several occasions we have observed these tensions. So we were actually quite eager to engage with make our focus the way that the educational development that the municipality had initiated, or that they said. And we're still not quite sure whether they are simply just too pressed for time, or whether it's not the right people we're talking to, because and Roland, correct me if I'm getting this if I'm putting this the wrong way. But so basically we decided, since we weren't hearing from them, that we would do a pilot study with a group or with a teacher who works with students who specifically are challenged in different way with diagnoses that make it difficult for them to engage in makerspaces. We're not saying that you have to have a diagnosis or that it's all about diagnosis, but it's simply they were in a setting where that was specifically designed to help students with diagnosis, and he is and he's very engaged in doing that with and engaging them through makerspaces. So we decided we wanted to do a pilot study together with this teacher and his group of students to help us become more clear on what could be focus areas, as Inga-Marie said, a framework. Yes, it would be a special education class in the US, except that we yes, I think the answer is yes. We're talking about students at the grade level 10, and the reason I'm hesitating just a little bit is that at this point the mandatory schooling is over, so they have chosen to go to further schooling. But so in that sense, it's not that they could have decided to do something else with that time. So, and I think when you're talking about special education classes, they will still be within the mandatory school system, right? So that's why I'm hesitating. But that said, students at the grade 10, we have mandatory school until grade 9, but students that don't go on to secondary education at this point usually take the class 10. Because they don't, and it would be because unless they know exactly which which vocation they want to go into. So going into some kind of grade 10 is not mandatory, but it is the practice, I think, that every student not doing something, not choosing something else more specifically would do. Still, this is a specific thing they have chosen, and they could have chosen otherwise. So, and as Inga-Marie was saying, what we are hoping to develop is a framework that can help teachers more generally, not just in this special education setting, but teachers more generally working with a class of not special education students, but a class of students, may make FabLabs or makerspaces spaces for all. And I think this is where I'll hand over to you, Roland, to say a little bit more about the setting in Skanderborg, where we did our pilot study.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Nina. You covered quite a bit of the setting. I think I'd like to start by saying that one of the background things here is also that in Denmark, we don't have computer science. And we've had some national projects going on. It's a project where it's more or less called computational empowerment. That's the idea. behind a new kind of subject that they want to implement into school, covering informatics and computer science into some kind of subject that will digitally empower the students, so when they get into our very digitalized society, they have a basic set of competences or basic literacy to do that. I know that in America, the White House has just released a report in November on computational literacy in STEM education. So this computational literacy is kind of becoming a topic. So on that basis, schools around Denmark that participated in the project and schools that didn't participate in the project, they began investing in new kinds of educational technologies. And part of that is establishing makerspaces and fab labs at school. And as Nina said, one of the things here is that in Denmark, we also have an inclusion agenda where schools for children with special needs are kind of phased out or becoming smaller, and a large population of these children are included into the regular classroom, if you will. So we have to have an attention on how to include these children, and whether these kind of open forms of project-based ways of teaching is good for everybody. And Lars, which is a very close friend of mine and who is the leader of a FabLab in Skanderborg, he is a former teacher, has established this FabLab as part of this kind of they call themselves a boarding school without students sleeping there, because they are there all day, they eat there, they spend a lot of time there, but they go home to sleep and then they come again the next morning. But it kind of acts like a family or a kind of community there. So the setting there is that they get in there, and then they have some common projects, and then they have their own projects. And they Lars is which is the name of the teacher, is trying to both push them a little, to challenge them a little, but also to nurse them. Whenever they are having trouble, or there's one student there, she has OCD and can't touch things, so he's quite aware of that person, and to help that person in every way that is needed, and so on. So they have quite a close relation, and for us to see how he develops a teaching plan, how he structures his lessons, which kind of topics he brings forth, and how the student engage, whether they couple, or what do you say, when they kind of engage, or how they connect or disconnect with the things that he's putting up, was quite interesting for us to observe. The FabLab consists of one room that is very much electronics and robotics. Another room where you have the laser cutter and the laser printer, and you can do textiles, and you can cut different things in different kinds of more soft materials. And then they have a kind of a mixed bio lab and a Crea lab, where the girls mostly go to be very with paintings and windows paintings and stuff like that. So it's so they're kind of mixed, everybody, and it's a very vibrant environment to step into. It's kind of hard to explain to people who haven't been there, because there's so many blind spots, and I've been there so many times. So please just ask. But it's, as you I understand why you would like to go a place like that. it's not so. It's the great thing here is that it's not so laboratory-ish, and it's not a tool shack. It's kind of a, I don't know, a place where you hang around. And so some students just get there. They're not really doing stuff. They're just hanging around, looking on the other kids' projects, helping here and helping there, and engaging with each other, because they also have to learn some parts of social skills. So just getting down there, hanging around, having something between us that can mediate, the talk that we can have. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, I actually know something about that. And where it's all right to be kind of a nerdy is really nice for the kids. So yeah, too many words. I think
Can I
so
ask?
You can.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Come on. Yeah.
Are in that space at one time, and is it just one teacher there, or does the teacher have assistants?
He is the only one mainly there. There are actually two. So there's a girl or woman called Ditte. She's head of the Crea lab, and he is head of the FabLab, but they are almost in the same room. So they are the grown-ups being there most of the time. But then, then a colleague comes and says, Lars, I have a problem with this device. You can see this is broken. Could you help me quickly fix it? And then, yeah, I'll just print blah, blah, blah. And then you can just sit here and fix it. So the teachers get in there as well to fix things. Everybody there is kind of craftsmen. They have kind of a craftsmanship. So the teachers many of them are traversing in and out of the FabLab all day long. So he's never really alone, but he's kind of in charge. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, part of what we are hoping is for some inspiration on how do we get further from here. What would you suggest? We are thinking about connecting with another municipality, since they are not responding here in Kolding. And I mean, we are allowed. It's not that we can't collaborate with other municipalities. And also, we are also thinking about simply engaging with some of the teachers, though not the teacher that we already collaborated with, but with other teachers in the regular school system, and simply make some projects, develop our framework further, sort of really in practice with other teachers. We think we can't really do that in Kolding, because that would be, since it's that would sort of be bypassing the setting that was already there, and which wasn't there, if that makes sense. I mean, so we think it will create a lot of tension in different places if we just connect directly with the teachers in Kolding. That will be sort of bypassing the educational development department that we should be talking to, because they said that, and because the management said they should. And so we're thinking that if we want to connect directly with teachers, it may be easier to do that in another municipality who is not involved at sort of the managerial level, and where teachers can simply engage if they find it interesting. On the other hand, we actually would like to have a stronger setup, which, if the municipality worked, if the municipality works, but I mean, if the municipality approach worked, would be stronger. And that's how I see most of your projects. They're sort of engaged. They have this medium level, not just with the teachers, but actually with the community around the teachers. And so that's one of the things we'd really like input to. And we'd also like some input maybe to the ideas we already have based on our pilot project, which we haven't said anything. We haven't said anything about the ideas, more specific ideas yet. But that, so those are the two kind of things we'd really like to discuss with you. And depending on what you'd basically like to discuss most, we can discuss either or both
I just wanted to give Cheryl a few minutes because I know she said that
Mm.
she had, I think it was who you said that you have to leave in like 5 minutes, and Cheryl's program is all about the collaboration between university, community, and municipalities. So wondered if you wanted to share some input before you have to take off, Cheryl.
All I have to say is I'm jealous of all of the great things you have, because I do a lot of work with children, and for years, for over 30 years, I've been doing this kind of work, but without the kind of resources that you have. But even if it's just clay and wood and small things, children love to get their hands on materials, having a tactile experience, students of all intelligences, really. And so it's just very exciting to hear what you're doing. And also it just reminds me so much of what Lee's doing. And I love the HOMAGO acronym, Lee. It's fantastic. I don't know if you all caught it in the chat. Hanging out, messing around, geeking out.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. So I just want to say thank you for the inspiration. And as always, you all seem to have are always on the cutting edge of design related work with your whole entire culture. So I'm just very impressed. So thank you.
Thanks. I've just some of you already noticed, but I've put in some links, and I'm putting in some more, just just to give you some pictures of what it looks like. The last one is unfortunately for you guys in Danish, but it should be said that Lars is a FabLab fellow, in the network of Paulo Blickstein. So I think we have 2 or 3 FabLab fellows in Denmark, and he's one of them. So he's a part of that network as well, and has some obligations there. So,
What is that network? I'm not familiar with it.
The FabLab at school, or FabLearn network, is a worldwide network where Paulo has tried to get some ambassadors from different countries to engage in a community hub where people can inspire each other and help each other developing different kind of projects, and how to develop a pedagogical approach to FabLab. And their meeting, I think they just had a meeting a few weeks ago in Finland, and last year Paulo Blickstein and some other people from the network were here in Denmark. So they kind of travel around, networking with each other to develop different kind of new ideas and pedagogical things. Yeah.
And I know one thing, just if I can jump in before Cheryl leaves too, because I know Cheryl, your program has worked closely with the city of San Rafael and the school and the university, and also other municipal partners. And how long would you say, Cheryl? I mean, from where I sit, I think it looks like the city, the municipality, is interested and engaged. They aren't necessarily contributing financially to the project. But what does that contribution look like in the collaboration with the city, Cheryl?
Well, usually in our Y-Plan programs, we always have a client who is usually a civic leader, oftentimes from the city itself. This spring, we're actually working with the Union of Concerned Scientists, which is an international organization really focused on climate change and sea level rise. What the civic client, the city does on the city end, is usually brings in resources, whether it be maps or data or policy efforts that are going on, and they really value the young people's input into those endeavors. So I think their contribution isn't necessarily financial, but what they get out of it is so rich and so important that that could be in the future. They showcase the students' work. They integrate students' policy recommendations and design recommendations into formal documents such as general plans and housing elements. And so the collaboration is very rich content-wise. And fortunately, the university provides the resources for us to really engage with children and bring in materials that they love to touch and move and make models and make maps and make posters and things that really contribute in a rich and vibrant way to sometimes dry policy efforts for the city. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, Mara, but
Yeah,
this
definitely.
collaboration with all the adult partners, like this spring, we're working with something like 20 adult partners on this issue of sea level rise and climate change. And the adult partners just bring in gravitas and, support for the young students. And when the students are really engaged with adults who really care about their input and care about their efforts and really value their contributions, it really lifts up the students' confidence, their leadership capacity, and their aspirations to be civic leaders themselves going forward. So the collaboration is really rich. And yeah, I think we should think about the financial contributions going forward, but it shifts around who our partners are. So mostly what they offer is rich input and gravitas.
And how long have you been partnered with them, and how long is it like one person that has been your connection, or is it institutional, and was it developed over a decade or?
Yeah, we work with the school district, and then we work with selected partners within the city, whether it's if we're working on a project about housing, we will reach out to the people that are in the housing department, so to speak, or if it's something about climate change and environmental issues, we work with them. So it's across the board, kind of the whole spectrum of people within the city. But because the students make presentations at city council meetings or at school board meetings, oftentimes adults come to us and say, I have these resources, or I have these talents, or I have these interests. I would like to work with you in the future. So it's not formalized in that sense. There's just deep consciousness that there are young people out there engaging with issues that are of importance to the people in the city, and they really want the young people's input. And also, it's a way to connect to their parents, many of whom are not English speakers. So the students are really liaisons within the larger community that might be on the periphery of city efforts.
What other question?
Yeah,
go
that
ahead. Sorry,
definitely
Nina.
that definitely is part of it, that I'm maybe too impatient. But I should say that the municipality was not asked to contribute money. They were asked to contribute money in kind, in the sense that we asked them to contribute teachers' time. Mm-hmm. But Roland and I were financed by our institutions in this. So I know it's not asking little to ask teachers' time, but we weren't asking them to pay for our presence in any way. And so we thought that actually the deal was quite good, since we were basically offering them a competence development of their teachers for free, in collaboration with us. I mean, it was a competence development where we weren't sure of what we were doing, so we would make wrong strikes and stuff like that. But basically, we also thought that would be a way of engaging and committing the teachers, that they actually would design it with us rather than just have the usual kind of competence course. But I'm probably both impatient and naive.
I want to open it up to other people's input, because there's so many people in here who have such long experience, in collaborations, clearly, and I know you do too as well, Nina, in other settings, and then also like with Lee and Jay and their experience in maker settings in particular. And I just wanted to also one little highlight for the conference coming up. And Nina, I know you already know Antti in Finland very well, and I know that one of Antti's most recent projects is actually working with teachers and students at a secondary school in Finland to focus on school change and engaging with the teachers. And so he'll probably be sharing a little bit about that at the conference. And I don't know if you've talked with Antti about that latest project or not, but it just in what you all are thinking about in terms of engaging with the teachers.
Well, it's so nice to hear about the work that you're doing, and especially in light of having had a chance to visit with you a bit, Nina, in the past, and to I think echoing what others have said, it's really inspiring, and I think the ways in which you've connected with this like existing vibrant program and thinking about ways to take it into new directions is really really inspiring. I think that in my work with Jay, we've had, well, for a variety of different reasons, we haven't been at the same place for a long time. We've found ourselves kind of bouncing around, and so I think we've developed there's been some cumulative work over time in terms of the work that we've done and the ways in which we've thought about it, but there's also been a lot of like adjusting to new contexts and new partnerships and things like that. And partly that's circumstance, but it's also something that I think about in terms of just my own journey as a scholar. My training and my thinking is really like, what's the learner doing and what are small groups doing? Like, what's the classroom doing? And very much not about how to create like sustained change, not really about how institutions work. So it's one of the things that I enjoy about UC Links is that I get to hang out with really thoughtful people who are thinking about questions both micro and meso and macro. And so that's definitely what you've got me thinking about today, as you think about these different challenges and where the work might unfold. So that's what I'm thinking about. But then also in terms of what I tend to think about more, I'm also curious to know if you can say anything about like how, what kinds of models or frameworks or even tools you're bringing to thinking about the learning piece. If that's something that you're, like have a particular angle on, or a particular set of theories or measures or conceptualizations that you're bringing to the questions of, what are the kids learning, or what are the teachers learning, or whenever those learning questions come up, what are the ways in which you're conceptualizing that?
I can say that I've had a lot of discussions with Lars on this. And he's as a former teacher in primary school, he's quite direct when he's saying, well, he thinks schools should be doing something else than they are doing. So he wants to make the kids experience something that is much more interest driven, that is not assessed by specific curricular goals, that are much more assessed through their thinking about their own thinking. It's actually a step back to Seymour Papert when he in the 70s said, well, applying technology into education is very often applying gadgets to make teaching much more dull. So what he wants, he says, well, if we really want them to, to think that it's great engaging into stuff, it's great following your interests and developing creativity and stuff like that, we have to approach this in a much other different way than traditional schooling. So he and his kind of maker movement is trying to push against the more and more standardized assessment culture that is pushing down on Danish schooling right now. So we are trying in Denmark. There has over the last 10 years been we had something called the PISA shock, where we suddenly became aware of that compared internationally, we are not as smart in Denmark as we thought we would be. Because we have always been teaching not to meet specific standards. And now the international measurement is in kind of standards. So we lack, not horribly, but we lack when comparing to other countries. So there has been a push to do more standardized things into schooling, and you know, conservative school people like myself trying to preserve the, you know, the uniqueness of school and schools as a space for free thought. We have been pushing against it, and now the maker movement is trying to do the same thing by saying we have to have a pedagogy in school that is much more centered around interests, around processes, around creativity, and much less around meeting some standard requirements. And that said, of course, they also acknowledge that they also have to learn to read, and they also have to learn to write, and they also have to learn math and stuff like that. But repeating that over and over and over again, with the hope that someday they will get an A, and then when we compare ourselves internationally, we are just in the top 5. They are opposing that. So so it's a pedagogy of liberty or emancipation, you would say.
Thank you. That's really interesting. Just from my perspective, one thing that's been interesting about working in the making space is that it, unlike like mathematics, which is another field I'm interested in, there's a, you know, there aren't as many expectations. And so it means that when we go into school spaces, we only really get invited into spaces where there's flexibility. So it limits where we can go, but it also means that once we get there, we can run it much more like an after school setting or something like that, because the teachers are just like, it's enrichment, it's great, do whatever you want. And so it's, I've had other colleagues who say, you know, the exciting thing about making is partly that it can be a Trojan horse for bringing in progressive education principles into these school spaces and letting teachers actually see the ways in which really great things can happen, even when you are letting the kids, you know, follow their interests or letting it be noisy or what have you.
I just wanted to say that I loved hearing what you just said, because just even within our own education, right? It's all about test, and I really have this, like, even in the reading that I was doing for my class today, I was like, well, they don't talk about the testing industrial complex. And yeah, we're all for equity and all of these beautiful words that sound nice, but like, at what point are we going to challenge the system that's in place right now? So it's really great to hear what you're saying, and also it's inspirational because I think for me, as somebody who didn't have a maker space growing up, you know, I was kind of afraid of tools. And it wasn't until the state of California set up money to give to the community colleges so that we can go and learn how to work on cars, that I spent 3 years dedicating all of my Friday nights going to go work on cars. And I like really learned, and I love being in those spaces. So it's like, you know, sometimes it's just the fear of, oh, well, what if I hurt myself, or what if I break a tool, or what if, you know, I accidentally cut my hand off or whatever. But to have access to spaces that like guide you in that way, I think is crucial in the way that we learn and in the way that we move forward in the world. And I really do think that, you know, yeah, okay, literacies, but I think it's also important to know that literacies is more than just writing and reading. Literacy is also knowing how we move in the world and the way our energy affects everybody else, but also how to work with tools and not be afraid of them. So I commend you on your work and the inspiration that you brought to today's landscape.
Thank you. I'm very much inspired by Andy DeCessa and his ideas of, you know, and he has the materiality aspect as well. I just want to share a quote with you from one of the students in the FabLab saying, since I began coming into the lab, I've decided to become an electro engineer. It's so great to be able to fix my mom's broken stuff. And that's kind of one of the guys, and getting there. And when I was there, when he quoted this for me, or said that to me, he was creating his own motorbike by taking a chainsaw motor and applying it to his normal bike and rerouting the chain from the wheeling and trying to see whether he could actually make his own motorbike. And I talked with Lars about it, and he says, well, one of the great things with many of the kids coming here is that they get very persistent. So instead of, only being able to do this for 5 minutes, and then we have to do something else for 10 minutes, and then we have to do something else for 10 minutes to get there, to keep their concentration and their concentration span, what they learn here is that they need to be much more persistent, and they have to learn things, and things break and things don't work the first time, so they have to keep on trying, keep on going, do it again, and stuff like that. And that's one of the things that Lars is is putting into the foreground when he talks about what the kids are learning in his lab, is that they learn to keep on going with their projects instead of giving up. Yeah.
I agree to this. But I also think that we are now doing a little bit what we set us as a task not to do. That we are focusing on the students for whom it works within the setting where within a different setting where things are expected to work differently. And so I'm not saying the student isn't there, Roland. I saw several of those students too, but I also saw students for whom it was the student you mentioned with OCD, for whom the very challenge of just being in the room where people touched things that she would then also have to touch afterwards was that's where her persistence where she's not challenged to in anything content-wise, she's challenged to just be persistent in being in the room. And so I think I'm just warning us, you and me, and Inger, you, Roland, and me, and Inger Marie, and me, to keep the focus also on the students for whom who don't grab an idea and keep on working on their bike and get the fancy idea of putting on a chainsaw on their bike, but for whom it just to be able to actually sit with their computer and touching only the things that they touch themselves, where that is, I wouldn't even, and I mean, it would even be an exaggeration to say it's a success, but that's what made the day went on like that, and it wasn't a bad day. And I think we have to be really careful to not overgloss this, and to not make it over positive, because I could very easily say that this girl had I could put it in a positive way, saying that she now experienced that the day worked for her, but I'm not sure she did. I'm sure she didn't have a bad day, but she had probably a bad day because there was a dog's whatever you call it in a nice ephemeral way in what the dog drops was outside the porch door that she was trying to come in, and she couldn't come in. She wasn't able to step over that dropping and into the so she partly had a bad day even for that, which had nothing to do with the makerspace, but had something to do with her personal challenges, but which are there in all of reality all the time for her. And so I think I make my point. That just we in all our happiness about when we can see things work for some of the students, we shouldn't forget those students that we don't see it with.
I think that you also bring up, Nina, like, something that this tension, right, between what's working and what's, that's so exciting, right? When you see how it is working for some, and also trying to not just hold, but create a space that can hold the learning of everybody, right? Like you're saying, the making for all, and how challenging that is to support individuals and to create and co-create a liberatory, and using liberatory kind of pedagogies that you're referring to, in order to really welcome and engage a full range of learners, right? And I hear also that yourselves and Lars are also part of that group of learners, right? And I hear so much in what you're saying about how you're learning from these students and how you're learning from Lars too. It's so clear that this is it just seems like it's a pilot that is so really well set up for learning and for testing. Like it seems like you're really applying all of those pedagogies, you know, that you would see in a maker space to your own practices as well, right? You're trying things out, you're changing things around, and you're all kind of putting on these hats of learner.
So hi, I'm Jay. I work with Lee at the FabLab at UC Davis. And so I've been working on this FabLab project for the past 3 years, and this year I've started running it basically entirely by myself, and which is, I'm really thankful that Lee has trusted me with this responsibility. And so one aspect of the Beta Lab is training the undergraduates to be maker facilitators. Oh, thanks, John. So over the past 3 years, I've been collecting data on both the undergrads and the 6th graders, or whichever grade we're working with. And there's this common theme that I noticed, both with undergrads and with a variety of maker educators in training, where it's like out in the wild, I see this repeating theme of like, oh, there's this librarian who has now been told that they're a maker educator. Or like there's they get some funding for makerspace, and so it's like, okay, now you're a maker educator, or like we're having this new program where you're all going to learn how to be maker educators. And we have some similar themes in our program, where we have undergraduates who want units for their education degree, or they want some practice in the field, or they want to try out working with kids. And a common theme in my data is that a lot of the facilitators in training that we work with, these undergrads and other people that I've talked to, community partners and such, is that there is this mindset that is very much embedded in assembly line education, in really focusing on really focusing on standardized testing, and like the vision of success being like they will complete a project, and they will do all of the tasks for the day, and then learning being like they will have memorized what a circuit is, and so on, you know, like this kind of traditional schooling. Whereas in Beta Lab, we find success to be more oriented towards things that you were saying, like failure positivity, asset-based pedagogies, collaboration, playful learning. And so my question is, do you have any experience with working, you know, like training people to take on these more broad mindsets towards what learning can be? And you know, like, because I have tried a lot of things like readings and workshops and like watching videos and like self-interrogation, stuff like that. And sometimes it goes well. Sometimes it makes no difference. But yeah, I wanted to know what your experiences have been with that.
Well, yeah. I'm part of in Denmark. We have a playful learning program as well, made by Lego. We're working together with Mitch Resnick from the MIT and his, you know, lifelong kindergarten approach, the 4 Ps and stuff like that. So one of the branches that I'm working with is called Play at Heart, which is a project where we develop pedagogies and teaching methods together with teachers on school involving educational technology that starts out by playfulness. So having playful approaches, not playing, but having this open experimental inquiry-based approach to learning in school. And one of the challenges that we often meet is that teachers go into what we call an auto mode. So they tend to do what they know works, because in the daily life of a teacher, there's a lot of things going on, and they have very little time in Denmark to prepare the lessons and stuff like that. So they often go for the, we know this works, we've done it before, so we'll just do it again. But as this project has been going on now for around 2 years, we can see that this play approach is beginning to evolve in the practice of these teachers, going away from starting just out, ritualistic, almost by playing a game, and then we've done the playful approach, and then we can go on with the traditional teaching, to actually see how can we create stemninger? How can we create moods? Yeah, playful moods in the lessons. How can we spark the interest of the children? But it takes a long time, and it requires, from our part as further educators and project partners and stuff like that, persistency in keeping the teachers to the fire and offering them the exact amount of push, the exact amount of inspiration, the exact amount of craziness, to make them see the meaningfulness of doing so. But I think it's a tendency, as I said before, after these 10 years of more and more going into more standardized things, the counter movement is opening up for more different approaches to teaching, going back to the kind of soft pedagogies again. So
my dissertation proposal is centered around understanding how people become maker educators that embody the maker mindset, which is the maker mindset is not exactly a construct, it's a collection of attributes, and Lee wrote a paper in 2015 that describes those, and so I'm looking at those as my main things to code for as so, but then it's also, okay, I'm designing this program and hoping for the best. It definitely impacts some people, but not everyone. But yeah, it's funny you say the right amount of chaos, because that is the thing that I'm most attracted to, or maybe not most attracted to, but it's something that I am very comfortable with, but that the teachers, the community partners and the undergraduate mentor facilitators are less comfortable with.
But I mean, one of the things that the teachers most often say is the biggest challenge is to let go.
Yeah.
Letting go and letting go of control, because as they say, yes, they're having fun, but what are they learning?
Right.
Just like the question that we had before, right? That Lee asked, what are they actually learning here? So it's great to have fun, and it's great to be playful and stuff like that, but they also have, schooling is also about learning something. So the biggest concern with these teachers is letting go and seeing what happens, and not being able to say, will they learn something? And where Lars would say they are learning a lot. Maybe it's not it's not expressed through what they're saying, or it's not directly accessible, but they are learning a lot about themselves, about being involved in stuff. And for the girl that Nina talked about earlier, alone the thing that she is meeting, that she is actually getting there every day, is for her a success, because when she went into normal school, she couldn't manage to go to school every day. So for her alone, being there, being in the room with other people, feeling accepted in the room with other people, might already be a huge success for her because of the challenges that she has. And that's what Lars is thinking of when he says that school has to be something else than just, learning specific content or specific stuff. It has to be a place where you develop as a whole kind of person, right? So, and I think that's a very beautiful thought.
Well, this was really, really, really great to hear about the pilot and how things are going, and how like the challenges that you both share, and the different phases or stages that we go through in community-based partnerships, how they do overlap, regardless of the topic or the area you guys are working in. Like Jinsook said before hopping off the Zoom meeting, she works in language and you guys work in maker spaces, but how many of the challenges are very common and very similar, and how you guys as PIs and being the leaders of the project have to navigate those challenges in order to make it work too. And that, in addition to the quote unquote pedagogical aspects of the program itself too, like you were saying, the messing around part can become challenging for some people to embrace, especially when they're not used to this after school informal learning and the different dynamics that take place in spaces like this, right? When I first was introduced to after school, it was hard for me, because to me, from the outside, without knowing what was going on, to me everything looked like all like messy, and I didn't know like what the heck is going on. Like everything is like kind of like all over the place, right? But when you get to know how things work out, then you see like, oh, now I get it now, and I do understand what is going on behind the scenes and what is really happening in the middle of that mess. Like the kids like running around and playing and messing around, like the book that Lee shared, and all the learning that happens behind that type of like interactions. So that's super powerful.
Yeah, I just really enjoyed hearing all your work, and it's great to have another European site come into the mix here. It was great to hear about Seymour Papert. I was just thinking about Logo the other day, and that's kind of how I got started also, just like, kids experimenting and having a good time, and it's so important. You made so many good points, just like learning to let go is still, I still catch myself like, I think that's the important thing about watching the kid-to-kid interactions, because they're so rich, and not just seeing your own perspective all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Agreed.
It has definitely been such a pleasure to share this with you, and feel that our thoughts resonate with what your experiences as well, and also sort of to get the support in that maybe things just take longer than than you want them to, and maybe you shouldn't give up, and maybe there's light at the end. There will be some light somewhere at some end of some tunnel, without it necessarily being clear which tunnel and what light right now. So thanks so much for letting us present.
So thank you for also like staying this late. I know there is late on the other side of the world, and just to open up your project to all of us, and just being able to, and willing to share everything that you are doing, and also learning and facing, and open up this to the network, like the challenges that you're facing, and how, as you said, they're all similar, regardless whether you're in Europe or in the US or elsewhere. And we all, like all the programs have been going through similar challenges and how we navigate them. So thank you for sharing that and staying up this late just to share your amazing program with all of us. And we hope to see you all soon at the conference. You'll be joining remote, but I'm pretty sure that there will be pretty good and rich interactions happening behind the scenes on Zoom as well. And I know that that people will be more than grateful to see the recording of this session just to get a sense of, one, what you're doing, and second, feeling that maybe they're not alone in the challenges as well. And that's why we are offering this space, is just to learn from each other.
Thank you so much.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very nice to meet you on
nice
camera,
to meet you.
Roland. And Tom, thank you for staying. And Nina,
Thank you.
Thank you very much for
thank you so
sharing.
much.
And have a wonderful rest of your night.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice one.
You
Cheers.
too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.